what is macros, how does it work, why is it there in Excel, and what is the advantage and disadvantage of macros. क्या होता है कि there are certain things which people feel are very attractive. तो लोग बोलते हैं यार sounds very interesting, it's very attractive, it helps us to do things very easily. So why not implement it? But I always believe that when you try to implement a particular technology, and macro also is a particular technology which is being implemented in Excel. It is not a normal feature or function of Excel, just to let you all know. Macros is a different section altogether. Macros has a different purpose. That's why I said the advantage or disadvantage macros में है. तो मैं आपको बताता हूँ. First of all, what is macro actually? Macros is nothing but creating automation in your worksheets. That means if I know that there's a particular task which I do every time when I'm creating an Excel sheet, I have one particular format which I follow. All right. But sometimes I may not use that format. तो ऐसा भी नहीं है कि मेरा सब फाइल बिल्कुल सेम होना चाहिए. ऐसा भी नहीं है, but कभी-कभी similar रहता है, कभी-कभी अलग रहता है. So let's say I've got two different styles of working in Excel. Okay, let's look at it that way. And I want to name those two styles so that the next time I open Excel, by just clicking the name of the style, my Excel sheet looks exactly the same way. So macro is going to help you record data which can then be used as many times as you want. Okay, that's the purpose of macro. The advantage of macro is very clear. ज़्यादा मेहनत नहीं करनी पड़ती है, automatically हमारा काम हो जाता है. The disadvantage of macro is that when you receive a file which has got a macro implemented in it, मतलब macro को apply किया हो कोई file में, when it comes to you, Excel will always ask you a question: do you want to enable that macro, yes or no? It will always come whenever you receive a file which has got a macro. अगर आपको कोई file भेज रहा है, Excel will 100% ask you, do you want to enable the macro, yes or no? Now, the reason why Excel is asking you that question is because a macro is a coding which is done using the Visual Basic Programming Language. मतलब basically उसके अंदर एक particular coding किया जाता है. अगर मैं कोई फाइल एक मैक्रो के साथ एक्सेप्ट करता हूं और गॉड फॉरबिड अगर उस मैक्रो के अंदर उन्होंने ऐसा कोडिंग किया हो जो आपके डेटा को इरेज कर सकता है, या ऐसा कोड किया हो जो आपके डेटा को टैम्पर कर सकता है, तो द सेम टूल व्हिच इज अ वेरी गुड टूल कैन बिकम अ वेरी डेंजरस टूल इन एक्सेल. Macros, as I told you, uses Visual Basic Language. I will show you now how it works also. So we'll start by creating a simple macro first. All right. So I want a particular style. तो मैं बोलता हूँ मेरे जो columns और rows है वो particular size के होने चाहिए. जो मेरा पहला row है उसको मुझे merge करना है. और जो मेरे formats हैं different columns के वो भी एक particular style में होने चाहिए. Decimal points होने चाहिए, currency होना चाहिए. All these things I want to store as a style. So I'll go to the developer tab. इस developer tab के अंदर we have got something known as macros. और वहीं पे एक button है known as record macro. Let's click on record macro. He's asking me what name do you want to give to this macro. And he's telling me where do you want to store this macro? Is it this workbook or new workbook or personal macro workbook? अभी ऐसा है If I say store macro in this workbook, that means the macro will work only for this particular file and not for any other file. That means now my macro is going to be applied only in the different sheets of my Excel. But when I say you store this in my personal macro workbook, it will become something which can be applied across all the different sheets that we have. Again, when I store under the personal macro workbook, to delete a macro becomes very difficult. There's an entire process to delete that macro because it is going to get stored in the root of Excel. That means जो हमारा Excel software का root directory है, जहाँ पे हमारे सब सॉफ्टवेयर के फाइल्स हैं, वहां जाके ये मैक्रो अपना पोजीशन ले लेगा. If I choose personal macro workbook, to start with, I'm just doing it as this workbook to show you all, and I will give this macro a name called style 1. Description box is optional. You can put a description here saying what this macro is going to do for you, what is its job. You can write over here. That is going to change the format of my Excel sheet. You can put that if you want to. I will say okay to it, and my macro recording has started. You can see it says over here stop recording. Recording चालू हो गया. मैं बोलता हूँ मैं कॉलम ए को सिलेक्ट कर रहा हूँ. कॉलम ए का जो width का साइज है वो मुझे चेंज करना है. I'm going to make the column width of column A as 30. That's my first step. Column B to column J, I'm going to select. I'm going to go to format and say कि ये सब column का width has to be 12. That's my next step. After that, I select A to J, and I say all these have to be merged and centered. I select here. I say I want this to be light blue in color. I want it to be bold. I want the handwriting style to be Arial, and I want the font size to be 16. Then I select B to J again. And I say this time I want to change the format. I want it to be currency format, and I want the currency to be in Indian rupees. I have recorded this macro, and I go back to the developer tab and I say mera kaam ho gaya. This is my first style, and I say stop recording. I've successfully created a design for my macro, which I want to implement in my other sheets. Next style record kiya. I've not saved any data. I've only recorded a style. You can also save data the same way. All right. तो अब मैंने ये style कर दिया. Now let's say I want to apply this style on sheet 4, for example. ठीक है? I go back to macros और यहाँ देखिए मेरे पास लिखा हुआ है style 1. You can see it's come over here, style 1. मैं इसको रन करता हूं. Now, just to let you know, it says merging cells only keeps half the value and discard the other values. Do you want to go ahead? देखिए मैंने वहां पे एक merge cell का ऑप्शन किया था. Unfortunately, मेरा डेटा है यहाँ पे. If I say okay to this, my data is gone. But there is one problem in macros which you will realize. You say, sir, ये क्या हो गया? Sir, ये question mark कैसे आ गए? Sir, not applied the currency symbol. ये क्या हुआ और क्यों? ठीक है ना? And always remember, एक बार आपने ये अप्लाई कर दिया, just understand, undo का बटन नहीं है इधर. इसलिए मैं आपको बोल रहा था, मैक्रो has advantage as well as disadvantage. एक बार आपने मैक्रो रन किया और अप्लाई हो गया, तो आपका जो डेटा था वो गया. उसका ओरिजिनल फॉर्मेटिंग गॉन. नाउ दैट ABCD is gone. There is no ABCD in my entire sheet. देखो मैं जूम आउट करके दिखा दूं. गया, it's gone. That's why whenever I create a particular macro का style, I always apply it on a blank sheet. देखिए मैं यहां अप्लाई करूंगा. I am safe now. Now when I'm typing my data and I'm typing some value, I'm getting my decimal point, but again this question mark is coming. मेरा वो करेंसी नहीं आ रहा. आप बोलोगे सर ये एक प्रॉब्लम है मैक्रो में, लगता है मैक्रो डज नॉट कैप्चर करेंसी. चलिए एक काम करते हैं. ये मेरा स्टाइल 1 था. अब मैं क्या करता हूं, देखिए अंडू भी नहीं होता. अब मैं क्या करता हूं, मैं स्टाइल 2 क्रिएट करता हूं. ठीक है, पहले इसको मैं डिलीट कर देता हूं. अब मैं एक न्यू शीट ले रहा हूं एंड आई एम क्रिएटिंग another style called style 2. I'll go back, record macro, I'll call it style 2 and I'll say चलिए अभी मुझे करना है, तो मैं सेम थिंग करूंगा, सिमिलर टू व्हाट आई वाज डूइंग अर्लियर ओनली. आइटम सिलेक्ट करता हूं जे तक, मर्ज और सेंटर करता हूं. सपोज कोई कलर देना है, ये टाइम येलो कलर दे देते हैं. और मेरा एक कॉलम को थोड़ा बड़ा कर देता हूं. ये कॉलम्स ठीक है मेरे, आई डोंट माइंड, द साइज इज ओके. एंड हियर आई विल गो इन दिस ड्रॉप डाउन एंड आई से यार मे बी मैंने यहां से यूज किया होगा इसीलिए गड़बड़ हुआ होगा. So what I will do, I will go into this more number format. I'm not going shortcut, I'm going the long cut way. ठीक है ना. इसके अंदर मैं जाके करेंसी चूज करता हूं. मैं बोलता हूं हाँ 2 डेसिमल प्लेसेस चाहिए, सिंबल रुपीस. And also he asked me over here, if it's a negative number, do you want it to come in red? ऐसे हाँ वो भी करते हैं, मजा आएगा. नेगेटिव नंबर रेड में आने चाहिए और माइनस के साथ आने चाहिए. हाँ भाई माइनस के साथ आने दीजिए. ठीक है, इसको मैं ओके करता हूं. मैंने ये फॉर्मेट क्रिएट कर दिया ये शीट के लिए. स्टॉप रिकॉर्डिंग. स्टाइल 2 is recorded. I've got 2 styles, 1 and 2. Now let's apply 2. क्लास अरे 2 अप्लाई हो गया. ठीक है, यहां पे नंबर टाइप करता हूं. आया कि नहीं आया, नेगेटिव नंबर डाल के देखते हैं. तो सपोज दिस माइनस दिस, तो ये तो पॉजिटिव आ गया. करेक्ट. अभी ये टाइम क्या करते हैं, दिस वन माइनस दिस वन. सॉ द डिफरेंस. नेगेटिव नंबर में I came with the red and I also got a minus sign. Positive number is coming in black with the currency symbol when I'm applying the same formula depending upon the values. That's why I purposely applied the same formula in both to show you. So the formulas will work perfectly and the format will work perfectly. The reason why in style 1, जो हमारा blue वाला, ये blue वाला style था, the reason why over here I am not getting or was not getting the currency was because I had used the shortcut तरीका. Macros जब भी आप करते हो, please use the entire feature from here. यहां से काम करिए आप, ये विंडो से. कोई भी फॉर्मेट, डेट, टाइम, अकाउंटिंग, करेंसी, work from this window. You will be safer and you will be sure that your macro works well. तो अप्लाई करते वक्त आप सोचिए कि कहां और कैसे अप्लाई करना है. And as I told you all that if I want to edit my macro, I will have to have knowledge of Visual Basic. देखिए आपको स्क्रीन दिख रहा होगा, मेरा Visual Basic का कोडिंग का स्क्रीन आ गया. Just imagine, I'll just show you, you'll be surprised to see कि कितना लाइन ऑफ कोडिंग किया है ये लोग ने. भगवान बचाए कितना कोडिंग करना पड़े आपको. Look at the amount of coding. See this. What have I done? that so much coding is required. कितना coding है? Style 1 macro के पीछे, ये Style 2 के पीछे, ये मेरा Style 2 macro का coding है. All this dot horizontal alignment equal to XL center, dot vertical alignment equal to XL bottom. This is your Visual Basic language, जिसपे macro का coding होता है. I have showed you how to apply a particular style. Let's say मेरे पास एक शीट है और मुझे सिर्फ डेटा है जो मुझे स्टोर करना हो. I've got certain amount of data which requires to be stored so that I can use that whenever I want to use it. Naturally, वो भी important है. आप बोलोगे सर मुझे कोई particular data है वो use करना है again and again, तो कैसे करेंगे हम use? Just for example, I've got this kind of type of data, name of, एक मिनट मैं ये पहले रिकॉर्ड करता हूँ so that everything gets recorded only. चलिए, developer record macro. I call this as my let's say product sheet. Okay. Now remember one thing, whenever you are naming a macro, do not give a gap between the name of the macro. ये मैंने product और sheet के बीच में एक gap दिया हुआ है, if you see, इसको gap मत दीजिए please, इसको एक साथ टाइप करिए product sheet, ठीक है ना? रिकॉर्डिंग चालू हो गया? Name of products, department, and price. For example, name of product कुछ भी आ जाएगा, department भी कुछ भी आ जाएगा, price भी कुछ जाएगा. ये particular format में मैंने data type किया हुआ है. So I'm preparing a sheet. I know that my name of products are always more or less same only. And I know that ये product अलग-अलग departments में से आ रहे हैं. जैसे product A है, वो let's say हमारे departments के बदले actually category लिखना चाहिए मेरे को. तो category में we can put कि product A कौन से category में से है. Product मेरा A let's say plastics में से है. Product B मेरा metals में से है. I'm just giving you an example, different categories of products. Product C मेरा wooden products हैं. Product D वापस plastics में से है. I'm just storing some data in a macro, and remember this data is my what do we call it? Static data. हाँ, dynamic नहीं है ये. मतलब ये हमेशा same रहता है. What varies is the price. So I'm not going to put anything in the price right now. Price का column को हम सिर्फ format कर देते हैं into currency and 2 decimal places. और negative होगा तो red color में. चलिए, ठीक है. इसको मैंने सिर्फ ये format दे दिया. Name of product category price को मुझे bold करना है और इसको पूरे को मुझे अगर समझो टेबल में फॉर्मेट में कन्वर्ट करना हो, ठीक है, और कुछ डालना है, चलो ये भी कर देते हैं, ठीक है ना, टोटल भी ऐड कर दिया मैंने. स्टॉप रिकॉर्डिंग. I go to a new sheet, macros, product sheet, run. आया कि नहीं? देखिए आ गया. Lovely ना? Now what happens is, as I told you, Visual Basic is a very important element of macros. So if I wanted to create a button which would execute a macro, generally a person would tell you go to insert and go to ActiveX control. वहां जाके आप एक button बनाओ, उसके बाद you will get a window showing you कि यार ये मेरा बटन है और इसको विजुअल बेसिक में करने के लिए I'll just click it double और मेरा विजुअल बेसिक का स्क्रीन खुल जाएगा, टेलिंग यू हाँ भाई चलो अभी बनाओ, जो आपको करना है करो, जो कोड लिखना है लिखो, ये बटन आपका उस कोड पे एक्टिवेट हो जाएगा. I don't want to do this. I don't want to go into the Visual Basic side because I'm not into Visual Basic. But at the same time, you say, यार मुझे एक बटन चाहिए जो मैक्रो रन करे, execute करे, without going into the headache of programming. चलिए, figure it out. I'll go to insert, and under insert, I've got my normal shapes. And I will choose a particular shape and I will draw that shape. मैंने एक rectangle बना दिया and I will call it for example average. मैंने एक ये button बनाया है, I'm calling it average. It doesn't look more like a button, but I can always make it like a button. You can go to shape effects, go to bevel and say चलो इसको बटन का लुक देना है मुझे, ये नीचे आ गया बटन, बना दिया मैंने बटन. This average now is nothing but a button which I can place anywhere I want to place. But I want this button to execute a macro. So I'm going to right click on this button and I say over here, चलिए assign macro का option है मेरे पास. I choose average and I say okay. हो गया मेरा काम. So I'll just switch off relative references and I'll say okay. अभी रन करके देखते हैं तो see automatically the hand came. See ये हाथ अपने आप आ गया. मैं सुना था assign to macro. रन करके देखते हैं. Did it work? देखिए आपका फॉर्मूला क्या आ गया. Whenever I am developing a macro, I'm using the use relative reference. अब developing stage पे अगर मैंने use relative reference on नहीं रखा, अभी चला कि नहीं चला? But while creating the macro, I have to keep this on. Remember that. देखिए कितना first class है, हाँ? बटन पे हमारा average का function चालू हो गया. अब बस numbers डालो और average हो रहा है आपका. Amazing, isn't it? It saves so much of your time. And if you want it to be executed through a button, then you create a button. I'm not saying button जरूरी है, but कभी-कभी लोगों को अच्छा लगता है. They want a panel with some buttons or formulas. So they can create it. जहाँ पे भी चाहिए वहाँ पे आपका average formula apply हो जाएगा. देखिए क्या होता है. Formulas is a very specific purpose के लिए. For example, अगर मेरा यहाँ पे कोई, एक मिनट, I like to work with different sheets for this. अगर मेरा यहाँ पे कोई numbers हैं, and I am adding, I have done an addition by using a formula sum A3 to B3. Do you think this formula will work in the new sheet?
No.
ये formula अगर मैं normal copy करके paste करता हूँ,
it will work.
It doesn't work ना. देखिए पूछ रहा है ना reference. It will not work because whenever you are applying a formula, मेरा sheet, always remember ये जो sum A3 to B3 है, it's actually getting saved in sheet 11. So in the real sense, if I wanted the same formula here, I would have to put equals to sheet 11 exclamation mark and then apply the formula. sum, whatever. Because this is what we call as referencing in Excel. That every single value which you are adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing in one specific sheet is going to be applicable only on that sheet and will not be applicable on the next sheet. To make it applicable on the next sheet, you need to take it from sheet 11. That means over here, I'll have to put equals to sum. And if I put an opening bracket, I'll have to go to sheet 11 and click that data. देखिए ऊपर आ गया sheet 11 A3 and do the same formula colon sheet 11 B3 and then when I press enter, मुझे देखिए answer मिल गया 30. It's not you can't get it. You will get the answer. So if any data here changes, on this sheet also it will change. देखिए 32 हो गया because I have given the correct referencing over there. The same way when we are working in macros, whenever we are looking at creating totals or when we are looking at creating any addition, multiplication to any values, always remember that it will work only if there is a referencing option which is given. And you will say, sir, कहाँ है वो referencing option? आप बोल रहे हो referencing option है, कहाँ है वो referencing option? एक example दिखाता हूँ मैं आपको, फिर आप लोगों को better समझ में आ जाएगा कि what I'm talking about, how we can add two values in a macro. I'll go to developer tab and record macro के नीचे एक button है known as use relative referencing. एक button है यहाँ. Before I can record my macro, I will choose use relative reference का button on करता हूं मैं. और उसके बाद मैं बोलता हूं अभी चलिए record करते हैं. I click on record macro and I say एक formula record करना है मुझे. और मैं क्या करता हूं, मैं इधर जाता हूं और मैं इधर लिखता हूं equals to sum opening bracket A1 to A4. A1 to A4. Enter. I got a V0 value. ठीक है, मैंने formulas बना दिया. मैं बोलता हूँ stop recording. तो अभी मैंने क्या किया, मैंने एक फॉर्मूला रिकॉर्ड कर दिया मैक्रो के अंदर. मैं एक नवे शीट में जाता हूं और कहीं पे भी क्लिक करता हूं. यूज रिलेटिव रेफरेंस ऑफ नहीं किया, मैंने ऑन रखा है. मैं मैक्रो में जाता हूं, बोलता हूं भाई मेरा फॉर्मूला है, इसको रन करना है, जरा लेट्स रन इट. The same 4 cells are going to be added. The only restriction here is कि जितने cells आपने ऐड करने के लिए बोले हैं उतने cells ही ऐड कर पाओगे. That's one restriction only. But the formula will work. But it will work only in those cells which you have told Excel to store. ये 4 cells का ही, अगर यहाँ नंबर डालूंगा ऐड नहीं होगा. देखिए 32 ऐड नहीं हुआ ना 32 ऐड, क्योंकि मैंने फॉर्मूला में 32 का सेल रेफरेंस नहीं दिया था. आई हैड गिवन ओनली दीस 4 cells. तो देखिए because I have this use relative references, because of that reason I can use formulas anywhere I want to use them. चलिए, so I had initially only told you that the macro is a very dangerous tool, because in a macro you can also program something that can damage your computer, something that can harm your system, something that can erase data from your file. And that holds true because there is a macro security button which Excel provides us, telling us कि यार आप macro create करते हो, ठीक है, but अगर कोई और आपको फाइल भेज रहा है जिसमें macro है, तो प्रॉब्लम हो सकता है. If you do not implement your security features for a macro. So the macro security gives me these options, as you can see. It gives me these options where it says disable all macros without notification. That means any file which comes to me with a macro, you please disable it. Now that's the most non-sensible option to choose, because अगर किसी ने कुछ क्रिएट किया है यूजिंग अ मैक्रो तो वो फीचर आपका इंप्लीमेंट ही नहीं होगा आपके फाइल में. तो ये तो ऑप्शन पहला वाला इज नॉट सेंसिबल. Then you have got the second option, disable all macros with notification. This is the best option to choose, the second one, because this will disable the macro. तो जब आप फाइल एक्सेल का ओपन करोगे तो मैक्रो रन नहीं होगा. मैसेज आएगा saying there is a macro in this file, do you want to run it? अब वहां क्लिक कर दोगे accept या run, and then the macro will activate. So if you know that the person who's sending the file is from your office, you know the person who's sending the file is your colleague, is your business partner, is whoever. So in that case, if you know that person and you know it's a safe source, then keep the second option active. Third option बोलता है disable all macros except digitally signed macros. अभी ये एक option है where a lot of times people do not know what is digitally signed macros. So ये third option भी थोड़ा tricky है, because opposite person should have that much knowledge. He may know how to add a macro, he may know how to run a macro, he may know how to implement it, but he won't understand how to create a digitally signed macro. फिर क्या करेगा आदमी? So this option also does not make sense. The last option is the most dangerous one, where he says enable all macros. It clearly says not recommended, potentially dangerous code can run. See, it's telling you very clearly over here. So on all your computers, whichever computers you have, you should go to this macro security and keep it at the second option known as disable all macros with notification. Keep always the second option on whenever you are creating a file which has macros.